Another exciting week in Hockey East. 6 teams in the top 11 of the pairwise in the conference. And after a break from conference play last week for the Thanksgiving weekend, we're right back to it with some great rivalry matchups this week in Hockey East. Hey, everybody. So glad you're with us alongside Jimmy Connolly, our celebrity guest host today. I'm Tyler Murray. Eric Galante's on assignment. But, of course, you know Jim from USCHO.com, and he's our lead analyst from the Hockey East Game of the Week on NESN. And I'm sending it right to you, Jim. A big week for UMass Lowell. 2 games on NESN, both on the road, as the Riverhawks look for a get-right weekend.
And they need it right now. They're struggling to score goals a little bit. You know, you see guys like Dylan Bentley, Nick Rayum, they've been hot of late. Scout Truman and Matt Kraza, they were hot early. Now they've got to kind of find a little bit. You know, they're both a little bit snake bit. You know, I see goaltending, is not usually the question with Lowell, and that's their one strength this year. I think Henry Welch is probably the guy that you're going to see in at least the first game of the weekend. He's started the number 1 game each week. He's played 3 of the last 4, and his numbers are great. He still has a top 10 goals against in the country at 2.11. So I think that this is a team, they've got the defense down, they've got the goaltending down, they've got to find a way to score goals. And they played a great series with UConn earlier this season. That'll be their first matchup on Friday on NESN. And when those two teams got together, Lowell only scored 2 goals in that weekend. They lost a game 2-1 in overtime. They won 1-0. They came away with 4 of the 6 points. So you're looking at a UConn team. Matthew Wood continuing to stand out. Chase Bradley picked up a pair of goals last weekend in a 6-1 win over Dartmouth, kind of one of those much needed offensive explosions for UConn. So let's see what continues in that one. Then on Sunday, we'll be up in Vermont, you and I, Burlington, Vermont. First time that NESN has sent their full crew up there since I believe it about 10 years ago. It was 2014 was the last time, according to the league. So I'm excited to head up there. And, I think the story for Vermont is goaltending. Gabe Carey continues to be one of the best goaltenders in the conference. Their offense needs kind of that breakout. They had one against UMass. I think you were on the call for it, Tyler, when they scored 6 goals late in that game, overcame a 2-0 deficit to win 6-2 at UMass. But those are the types of games that I think Vermont needs. Last year, when these two teams, Lowell and Vermont, faced off, it was a 4-0, 2-0 win for the Riverhawks. I go back to game 1 of that. Lowell had 3 power play goals. That's something that's lacking for this Riverhawks team. If they can get the power play going, I think their offense will be strong. That's what Norm Bazin is looking for right now. 2 really good matchups, though, both featuring the Riverhawks this week on NESN.
Yeah, you're so right about that UConn, UMass Lowell home and home. Riverhawks were a few minutes away from sweeping that series 1-0 and 1-0. So we'll keep an eye on the goal scoring there. And I'm keeping an eye on a marquee matchup in Women's Hockey East. This might be the game of the year. BC at UConn Saturday at 3 on NESN. It's the 8-3-0 Huskies against the 8-3-1 Eagles, a battle for first place, and a rematch of a great home-and-home series from October. Boston College won both of those games by a single goal. And they're the only team in Hockey East to score 4 goals against UConn this season. That was a 4-3 overtime win, because UConn's defense has been the story of the year. The Huskies have allowed just 11 goals in 11 conference games. Overall, they're tied for second in the country with just 1.13 goals allowed per game. And Megan Warner is a big part of it. She's really taken over a big part of that goaltending job. She's either allowed 1 goal or delivered a shutout in her 6 games starting. So 3 goals allowed in 6 games. That's just ridiculous for Megan Warner. And for Boston College, this is going to be a big test for UConn. BC, the only Hockey East team averaging over 3 goals a game in conference play. And the power play is a big part of that. 25%, leads the league by 4%. And it's so tough to defend because they have 11 power play goals by 7 different players, so you can't really key in on anybody. I'm going to key in on Abby Newhook, though. She's a player to watch for Boston College. Had the overtime winner to beat UConn on October 13th. 4 goals in her last 4 games, so she's heating up in a big way. Only had 3 goals all season heading into this hot stretch. But at the same time, you can't look ahead too much, even though I'm doing that, because both of these teams have games on Friday. UConn hosting Merrimack, and BC going to Providence. So a real tough test this weekend in both of those days for those teams. But Jim, I can't believe we've gone this far in This Week in Hockey East with talking about probably the best rivalry matchup in the country this weekend, UNH and Maine. They're both nationally ranked. There's so much on the line. I cannot wait to follow along this Wildcats Black Bears matchup.
Yeah, you know what? Everybody loves BCBU, and I get it. That's a fun rivalry, but I don't know if there's any more fan passion than there is for the UNH Maine rivalry. You and I went up there a couple of years ago. I guess it wasn't. It was sub-zero outside, and there was a line, 2 hours before the game to get into Alfond Arena, and that's kind of what you see. And I look at both of these teams, they haven't played a lot in league play. Each have played 6 games. UNH 4-1-1, Maine 3-2-1. But both right there in the top of the rankings. For UNH, it's Cy Leclerc. He seems to be like the go-to guy. Scored the big overtime game winner last Saturday night at RIT. And Ryan Conmey, the freshman, he's now the Hockey East reigning Rookie of the Week. He's got 6 goals, 8 assists, and 14 points thus far. But my question is who will see in net for UNH? Jakob Helston he's gotten a couple of starts down the stretch. He's a transfer from UNH of late. He played the game on Saturday night, got the win. He has a 1.31 goals against. That is the top in Hockey East right now. I'm interested to see if he's the go-to guy up in Maine. We know on the other side it's going to be Victor Osman. He has been just the stalwart for Maine. When he's going, that team is as well. But I think when we talk about exciting, passionate rivalries, there is nothing like it. And when these two teams are at the top of their game and they're there now, it's been a while since we've had both Maine and UNH red hot going into a series against one another. This is it. This is exciting.
And those two teams, they just fight, man. I mean, I'll go back to Maine at BU, those 2 games. It felt like they were out of it both nights, but they came back to make it a 1-goal game both times. And then UNH, that lost to RIT on the Friday, their first game there, they played incredibly well to come back and make that a game. So you're going to be watching that one until the final horn in the third period, or maybe even overtime. So can't wait for that one. Couple of minutes left, Jimmy. Let's do some short shifts here. Quick thoughts to wrap up the week. And I'll go first with a game we've been waiting for a long time since we were there at the Hockey East Championship. BU beating Merrimack in overtime on that Lane Hudson goal. It's their first meeting since. A home and home at Merrimack Friday, at BU Saturday. Now, Merrimack, they've been battling without 2 of their top shutdown defensemen, Mike Brown and Ivan Zivlak. So that's impressive to still allow just 2.5 goals a game. They want to be better, but it's still 13th in the country, top 3 in Hockey East. But it was the offense that led Merrimack to that Turkey Leg Classic title last week, a 7-3 win over Army, 4-3 win over Bentley. Alex Jeffries, 4 points. Matt Capone, a point in 12 consecutive games now. He didn't score in the season opener. He's scored every game since. So Capone and Zach Bookman, they're the highest scorers in Hockey East who do not play for Boston College or Boston University. So Capone and Bookman, guys to keep an eye on. I just can't wait to see how their defense holds up against BU's high-powered offense, especially on the power play. Now, the Terriers took their first loss in regulation since October 20th, the 10-game stretch, when Cornell scored those 2-period goals in red-hot hockey. And on the power play, BU was 0 for 4, and they had scored 8 power play goals in their previous 5 games. So Cornell finally cooled them off, and they had some good chances. There was a Macklin Celebrini chance. He got tackled on a breakaway, quick 5-on-3. They couldn't score on that one. So you can bet Scott Borick and company for Merrimack, they're going to grind that Cornell tape to see what the Big Red were able to do to have some rare success on the penalty kill against BU. But Scott Borick's PK is already great. They're 86%. That's 11th in the country. So they're on their way, I think, to turning things around after a slow start. And that leads us, Jim, into the conversation about the pairwise. I'll let you take the floor here. We know how many teams are in the top 11 for Hockey East. It's 6 of the 11. So a lot of very interesting matchups coming up to dictate who's going to make that national tournament.
And we're just at the time where I feel comfortable using the pairwise word. I think that once you get through that Thanksgiving weekend where you have a lot of non-conference play across all 6 conferences, you learn a little bit about the teams. Every team has pretty much played about 1/3 of their schedule, if not more. That's usually my measuring stick for when you can start even kind of looking at it. And right now it looks great for Hockey East. Boston College, number 1, Boston University, number 3, Maine, number 5, UMass, number 7, Providence, number 8, New Hampshire, number 11. That's all of those teams. If the season ended today, would be in the NCAA tournament. That's quite incredible. All of that said, there's plenty of hockey left to play. I look at the biggest 2 weekends remaining, probably the 2 right after teams get back from break. So that first, like right after Christmas, all the way through to about January 15th. And there's a not a scientific stat, but one that I've tracked over the years. And if you on January 15th are in the top 5 of the pairwise on January 15th, you're better than 90% to make the tournament. If you're in the top 10, you're better than 75% to make the tournament. So you're really thinking about jockeying from now until January 15th, because after that, it's mostly league play. You're going to beat up on one another inside the league. You do need to see some separation, though. And that's what Hockey East didn't have last year. You had very few points separate the top to the bottom in the league in the standings. If you don't have some teams take a step forward, that's when you kind of compromise yourself in league play. So I look at the time coming up, especially that time right after the holiday break, right after the exam break, those 2-3 weeks are the most critical, because those, whether you're going out to a Christmas tournament, whether you're taking a road game, whether you're having a few non-conference opponents coming in, that's where they'll play really almost the last third of their non-conference schedule in Hockey East. So those are the critical weekends. But right now, hey, it feels really good. And they got through a tough week. Thanksgiving is always a tough weekend. 10-5-1 Hockey East was last weekend outside the conference. That is one that you can kind of take to the bank and say, we're seeing some good things right now.
Yeah, it's been a great run so far. Hopefully they can keep it going. And a couple of other games I'm just keeping an eye on before we say goodbye. Northeastern, they're taking on number 1 Boston College in a home-and-home, Friday on the road, Saturday at home. Maybe it was a get-right Thanksgiving weekend for them. They beat RPI in a shootout and then blew them out 9-2. Can they pick up at least a couple of points against BC to get them back in that Hockey East conversation, or at least just get some good vibes going there for a really talented team who's had a slow start? And then for UMass, they're going to Vermont on Friday, just one game for the Minutemen this weekend. The only 3 teams to beat UMass this year, who's now in the top 10, BU, Michigan, and Vermont. You mentioned that 6-2 win that Steve Weidler led the Catamounts to on the road at the Mullen Center. So UMass, they've always been a take care of business kind of team when they've been at their best over the years. I think that'd be a good measuring stick. You can go into Burlington and continue your winning ways. Then they really got something cooking in Amherst. But Hockey East is back at it once again. Tough to find a matchup that's not intriguing this week in the men's and the women's side. So enjoy all the games, everybody. Big thanks to Jim Connolly for helping us out. We'll talk to you in Burlington on Sunday afternoon. Should be a lot of fun. And enjoy the games this week, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.